We will talk about the analysis section of chapter 1 or part 1 of Petals of Blood. So with its jumps back and forth in time and its multiple narrative voices, there is one over searching narrator who occasionally takes on a voice of authority, as well as numerous characters whose thoughts we were able to hear. Petals of Blood asks if readers to read carefully. While a relatively straightforward story in terms of plot, it is a dense, complex and thought-provoking work that takes on a grand endeavor of retelling the story of Kenyan and African history. There are many reference of many various critics. They told that one of them told nothing less than a Bible of African world historical experience. So anything written about Africa is about their Bible, right? Three important Kenyan businessmen, Kimeria, Chui and Mzigo. None of those names resonate with the readers yet, and Ngugi will only reveal the victim's true natures piecemeal throughout the text. We do, however, begin to get to know the four main characters right away, though Ngugi also takes his time to reveal their true motivations and backgrounds. As we see, you will get that all characters were lingering to say about to discuss about their past. It is important to remember, as critic Felicia Annin explains, that the novel is a complex exploration of real human experience, motivations and dilemmas in a historical context. True, right? But that the characters are made to dramatize ideological positions. Ngugi himself was a young man who lived through the Mau Mau movement, as we all know, the emergency and the end of colonialism. So critic Angela Downing notes, for a young educated writer with a theme such as these, based in traumatic personal experience, the obvious danger is that of producing a narration of political and historical events rather than a novel. The reader can decide whether the characters seem realistic or whether they are more types, but Ngugi does indeed develop memorable and complicated individuals to take the reader on the historical, political and ideological journey. Munira perhaps gets the most sustained narrative treatment, right? We see Munira. Right away, it is clear that Munira is an outsider to Ilmorog, right? He is an outsider. The people of Ilmorog are naturally suspicious of strangers and want to know why anyone would come here, right? They wonder if he was a little crazed, and was he not so old? He was already middle-aged. Was he a carrier of evil? He is unlike them in that he is not a farmer, which he admits to them. He has trouble with their song. His first conscious attempt to keep in step with the song seemed to have ended in yet another failure and defeat. He is very self-conscious and individual, which makes sense given his strict father and his failed attempts to secure said father's approval. Choosing to leave Limuru was like his first conscious act of breaking with his sense of non-being. So he thinks that it is his own decision. Over time, however, residents do accept Munira. They appreciate his readiness to stay, which didn't carry restlessness. He likes his feeling of acceptance, even though he is not exactly like them. He doesn't like to talk about colonialism. As they do. When this happens, he would suddenly become conscious of never have done or willed anything to happen, that he seemed doomed or roam his world a stranger. As a young man, Munira was intrigued by both his father's anti-Mau Mau stance. He didn't take the oath and he lost an ear for it. So he was not pro-Mau Mau rebellion, and that of an older woman who worked his father's land, Mariamu, who had Mau Mau sympathies and rumors of having a son who was excited for being in the movement. But his own admission, Munira had never thought deeply about man, law, God and nature. One critic says that a conflicted, ambivalent fence sitter of the sort of everyman figure with whom a typical reader might identify. Munira is characterized by the kind of doubts and indecision which more typically plague the general population. Should they disengage themselves and ride out the storm as general population? Should they Munira is so intent on doing, or should they become involved and make a stand, even if it is a futile stand, in the name of justice? Similarly, another critic suggests that Munira has chosen not to choose and to live in twilight. So Munira is carefree, he doesn't bother about anything. And another critic says that an intruder in the community, a man who fails to establish any lasting ties. So he doesn't have any long-lasting ties, not with his family, not with people of Ilmorog. He is the image of the Western educated African aspiring to his Western ideals, but left out of the real centers of power. Munira speaks of owing Ilmorog at one point, similar to colonial masters. So, I mean, like a colonial one, he speaks of owing Ilmorog. He owns Ilmorog. He represents the contradictions of involved in a Kenyan accepting Western premises about nature, power and community. He doesn't want to talk the students about anything real, preferring to dwell on more aesthetics and precision of language. He doesn't like to discuss anything with his students once we discussed it. There is no color called blood, he says. What do you mean that it is red? So because this conversation leads to the children asking big questions, Munira swore that he would never again take the children to the fields. So he was the master aloof, dispensing knowledge to a concentration of faces looking up to him. So details jana. Yet this ambivalence and conflict avoidance cannot always endure that the way Munia would prefer it to it. His obsession with Wanja and his interest in Karega and how the young man was actually part of his own past bring him unwillingly into the doings of the village. He agrees to go on the journey to Nairobi, though it is inadequately as he cannot fit into their oral culture. He will be forced to come face to face with evil, some of it being an evil fashioned from his own increasingly distorted and religiously fanatical worldview. So we will discuss chapter 4 to 6 in next class. Okay.